Hello and welcome back to Agatha's Kitchen. It's been a long time, so long I turned gray. We're going to make a couple of things today, but one of the quickest and easiest is out of Southern Living magazine from 2022, and it is an ice cream bread. Very simple, very easy, very good. It is a bread to be eaten with like a cup of tea or even with dinner. I've already made 2 loaves of strawberry, which we've kind of tested, and it was delicious. But I'm going to make a pistachio ice cream, and it calls for a pint, but I've decided to double the recipe and make a quart. I do that a lot. Freeze a loaf, give a loaf away. It helps neighbors who do chores or aid in some way. So this ice cream has been defrosting for a while. It's kind of soft, and I'm going to pour it out into my bowl. It is a quart of pistachio. You can use strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. The butter pecan is to die for, but I just couldn't seem to find any the other day at the market basket. So we are going to do pistachio, and here's the secret ingredient. It is self-rising flour. So basically everything you need, the milk, the sugar, the nuts, the flour, everything is in there and in the self-rising flour. So it calls for, as I said, I'm going to make double recipe. Calls for a cup and a half of flour for a pint of ice cream. It has to be self-rising flour or it just won't rise. So here is doubling the recipe. 1. A little hard getting the short arms down inside the container. 2. And I'm going to try to make the next one a little bit under the cup because the first 2 were a little over. So try to even it out in some way. I found this recipe at my cousin's, who lives in Austin, Texas. And I was sitting there, and it's been in the magazine a couple of times. Now, the instructions say stir. Don't mix with a mixer, stir. And that to me implies that you want to stir it, literally. I have a feeling when you use the mixer, it kind of breaks everything down. Now, because this is a bread recipe, it is not going to be easily flowing like, say, a cake batter. It is going to be a little thick and a little hard to turn. This is something easy that you can prep right before supper and have with supper. And one of the instructions now says to spoon the batter. So that implies it's not a cake, because a cake batter you can usually pour even if it's thick. It says to spoon batter into, I'm using 2 5 or 6 inch aluminum baking pans, and because that was nice and melted, the ice cream, I think you can see, I'm pretty sure, I hope you can see that this is pretty loose, and it also needs to be stirred just a little bit more. Sometimes when you're stirring, you don't realize that way down at that bottom, way down, and you're going to have to grease and flour. Well, I did one better. I just used plain old cooking joy, which is shortening and flour all mixed into one. Saves a little time and effort, which in my book is a good thing. So I think you can kind of see the consistency. It's not free-flowing like a batter, but you want to make sure you get all those packets of flour totally and completely dissolved. And I like to do both pans at the same time. That way I don't put more in one than I do with the other. So my pans I've already greased with the Baker's Joy, which is the flour and the shortening all together. This is a good recipe when you've got that ice cream and you really don't want to eat it. You can make one of these, or if you've got someone who keeps if you are someone who keeps ice cream all the time in the fridge, pint of ice cream, cup and a half of flour, or in my case, I made a double batch. So it was a quart of ice cream and 3 cups of self-rising flour. And that's it. Bake at 350. My oven is old. It's being replaced next week. And my temperature isn't always correct on the oven. So I have to be very careful. But it's 350 for 40 to 45 minutes. You want to test it. It says, and it's very specific, with a wooden toothpick, not a metal one, wood. When it comes out dry from the middle, then that's done. So I got a little bit spilled here. We can pick that right up. Get it right down to the very last dregs. I made the strawberry, which would be good for Valentine's Day. Pistachio would be great for St. Patty's Day. Pumpkin ice cream would be good. That would be a really good one for the fall. Sherbet won't work. Frozen yogurt won't work. Has to be ice cream. Oh, I've tried, believe me. I do try to test everything and try to make as many mistakes as I can so that I know what will and won't work. I'm getting the last bit out of here that I possibly can. And these are ready, so I'm going to get these over to the oven. So here we have our 2 lovely pistachio ice cream breads, and I'm gonna put those in, and I am a little bit above half the rack in the stove because my stove does not cook evenly. It is over 50 years old, and the new one was ordered this morning. So here we go, and we're gonna set the timer so that I'm gonna set it for about 23 minutes. And then I'm going to turn them around and reverse them. My oven has a tendency to cook hotter there than here, and then the second hot and the least hot. So I gotta rotate and turn around. So this is recipe 2 in our 3-recipe marathon day of cooking. The first one, ice cream bread. This is pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. Recipe, I suspect, is also out of Southern Living, as it came from my cousin. It makes a ton of muffins. They're delicious. They're great if you've got to send things to school, and they're easy. They're not hard. So it is, I've got 1 cup of sugar already in my bowl. Here goes the 2nd cup. And we're going to add just 1 more cup of sugar. I always like to cheat a little on the sugar. Kids get enough sugar as it is. They don't need a heck of a lot more. And the next thing is 4. It says large. Well, all I had were jumbo, so it's fine. I always, for some reason, always use jumbo eggs. There's a couple of recipes that I use that call for jumbos, and they're the ones I make most often. So I'm going to let that cream just a little tiny bit, very gently. And I'm going to add a cup of vegetable oil. Not canola oil and not olive oil. Vegetable oil does make a difference. Add this oil. plain. This way it's just easier to handle. Grab one of the spoons or filling. This looks so good. And it smells wonderful. It has that pumpkin pie smell. And little by little, we are going to, now here's the tricky part, getting this over into that. If you'd like, you could top these with a little Hershey Kiss, or a walnut half, or a pecan. Oh, pecans would work well too, reminiscent of that fall smell and taste. If it were up to me, I would have pumpkin all year round. I keep pumpkin spice coffee in the house just to have that wonderful, wonderful scent. The one thing about these muffins is that they do not rise a lot. They don't come way, way up. They're a little bit of a flatter muffin. And I tried using the baking powder. It didn't help. So it calls for baking soda, so that's what I use. And these are not a long cooking muffin, between 25 and 30 minutes. And this batter is a little more cakey type of batter as compared to the first recipe I did today. And we're looking at possibly 2 spoonfuls per muffin. Maybe 1 if it were the little mini muffins. Now that would also work. Good if you're having a Halloween party. I always like to dig from the bottom. Okay, I'm going to have to move this back just a little tiny bit so I can get my arms in there. I do like the silicone tins. They wash easily, they wash well. You have to be careful when transporting them to the stove. They are kind of rubbery, and the weight of the batter sometimes can make it sink in the middle, and then we have a major oops on our hands. Now I know I put out 24. I'm suspecting it'll make 26 or 28. These freeze well also. And yes, I've even tried them right out of the freezer. I'm ashamed to say it, but they are good, even cold. Now I did fill these a lot, almost to the top, in hopes that when I get down to the end, I could maybe put a little bit here and a little bit there and not have to line another cupcake tin. But if I have to, I will. Whoop. This recipe is just a tad messier than the ice cream bread, but that's okay. Still tastes great. Takes a little while. And I gotta tell you, no matter how much rum a cook has on the counter, it's never enough. You can always use a little space here and a little space there, and I'm gonna have to get a third cupcake tin. Well, that means everybody's gonna have a good time and enjoy these. But yeah, that looks about full. A little bit here. Move that, and I've got a little less than would be ideal for a loaf pan, but it'll be okay. And that's that. It's going to be a very thin loaf cake, but somebody will eat it, I'm sure. Okay, and these, in a second, we're going to put these in the oven, and I'm going to wash this out and get it ready for our next recipe, which is chocolate gingerbread. Okay, so now it's time to take out our ice cream bread. One of the things they tell me to do is to check with a wooden toothpick, not metal, because metal will always seem to come out dry. Boy, that's dry. That's dry. Those are cooked. So I am taking these out. In a little bit, that'll be ready to taste. Pistachio ice cream bread. Now we're ready to put these muffins, chocolate chip with walnuts and pumpkins, and they smell so good, even uncooked. So we're ready to put those in the oven. They go at 350, like everything else in the world, for about 35 minutes. Now the trick is to get these in the oven without spilling. And I probably should put them on a cookie tray, but once they're in here, they're fine. So, okay, there's one. And there's two. So, because this calls for 35, 40 minutes, I'm going to put my kitchen timer for 17 minutes and then reverse sides and switch them around. That way they'll all get the advantage of the hot spot and the cool spot in the oven. So I'm off to set my timer. So now the timer dinger is gone off. We are ready to test our pumpkin chocolate chip muffins to make sure they are done. Oh boy, they are indeed quite done very nicely, and maybe you as an audience brought me good luck because these rose up quite nicely. And that, my friends, is the end of recipe 2 for the day. Yeah, these come right out so beautifully, but I am going to let them cool off just a little tiny bit so that my little fingers don't get burnt. We're back in Agatha's kitchen and we're ready to go for the third recipe of the day. And this is a pumpkin gingerbread bread. This was given to me by Jean Shapley of North Reading. I asked her recently where she got it. She couldn't remember, and she hadn't even remembered giving it to me. But it's 2 packages of gingerbread mix, a large can of pumpkin, 4 eggs, a cup of warm water, raisins, walnuts, chocolate chips, anything you want to put in there. You have to be mindful nowadays of who is allergic to what. So it's 2 of the gingerbread mixes. I like things that start with something already done for you. It makes life so much easier. And I'm going to put in, get my bag ready because eggshells don't go in the recycling. And as I said earlier today, I always cook with the jumbos. There's 2 or 3 recipes that I make a lot that call for jumbo eggs, and so that's what I always have on hand is the jumbos. And A little eggshell never hurt anybody. And trash. And I like to add everything and then start it up. I try not to start it up totally dry, because then the powder have a tendency to go all over. Now, if you want to buy one big can of the pumpkin, you can. It's not a problem. These just happen to have been on sale right after the first of the year. So I snatched them right up. Got to get every last bit out. I think probably pumpkin is my favorite flavor. Maybe because I really love the fall and it reminds me of the fall. And pumpkin spice is coffee is so good. Now I know on some professional baking level this is probably a no-no, but I'm a novice. What do I know? My mother was a very large proponent of get everything out of that container. So, and we need a 1/4 cup of water, which I have already measured. And I'm gonna... Muffins, and so I'm not going to put chocolate chips in this recipe. Well, I just hit myself with the spatula. Now I got pumpkin all over me. But I am going to put in some walnuts. This is supposed to go into 2 loaf pans, 9 by 5 or 8 by 5. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller. I think I have 7 or 6. It'll come up a little higher. And they cook for 42 to 47 minutes. I'm going to call that a day. Just make sure we've got all the batter, the mix, the dry mix, blended in, and it's a heavy bowl. Yep. And I already greased my foil pans. I love foil pans. They're the next best thing to sliced bread. I already greased them with Baker's Joy, which is pan and a little flour. So that way it makes it a little easier. I'm going to spoon it in. Now, if you saw the beginning of the show, I made the ice cream bread. That batter was quite thick. The cupcakes were more of a cake batter. It was very thin. This is somewhere in between. This is a very, very, very moist bread. It is wonderful. Can be toasted with butter or maple butter, which is hard to find, but when you find it, it is a gem. Not great for a diabetic, but it's still a gem. That looks good. That made it a little bit easier. It's all mixed up. Because these are breads, they poof up very well. Aha! If you have one of those mini loaf pans, this works in that type of a pan as well. But the tanginess of the ginger and the sweetness of the pumpkin and voila, I'm done mixing. So we've got our pumpkin gingerbread mixture, and I'm about to put them in the oven at 325 for about 42 to 47 minutes, about 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in for 22 minutes and then flip them around, turn them around, and then do another 22 minutes. And those are going to cook, and I'm going to clean up. So I have to turn these around because, like I said, my oven is old and it doesn't cook evenly. Oh my, those look wonderful. So I'm going to take this one over here and that one over there. And this one like that. And I'd like to take this time to thank my friend Jo Ellen for this lovely apron, which when I started was very nice. Now it's not only got lemons, it's got a little bit of squash on it, but matches my wallpaper and my canister set. So thank you, Jo Ellen. I'll clean it well before I wear it again. But this is my oven, and it's after this is baked, that's the last thing that will be cooked on it. It's going away, and a new one's coming in. So this has got another 22 minutes to go, and we're good. So we're about ready to take the pumpkin gingerbread out of the oven, and the smell is wonderful. You know, on a really cold day, like last Saturday's when it's sub-zero, cooking is a nice way to keep the house, the kitchen warm, and it's productive. And if you don't want to eat everything, I'm sure there's neighbors and friends that would be very, very appreciative, or a senior citizen up the street, or the fire department, or the police department. Somebody always appreciates a goodie. So let's get these out. I am going to test. Perfect. Oh, this has got a little bit more to go. So I'm going to put that back in. Okay. So that's got a little bit more to go, so I'm going to give it another couple of minutes. So this is the one that I made this morning, and it was the strawberry ice cream. And what a great Valentine treat this would be. You can see how lovely and saturated the bread is. And I have it on my china, pink roses and cranberry colored roses, and kind of looks very nice. This is the first one you saw me mix, the pistachio. This will be great for St. Patrick's Day. And by the way, they will both be great for Easter. So, as in the cutting of bread, you always want to use a serrated. And let me just turn this fellow around so that you can see how beautifully green that is. Nice little pieces of pistachio. It makes a nice presentation at dinner when meat is brown, you know, potatoes are white. You always have a green veggie, and this would look great with it. So that was the pistachio bread. And let's take a look now at our pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. These are all cooled down. They're nice, and when you eat them, you can stick them in the microwave for a little bit, and it will melt those chocolate chips and get them started. My kitchen right now just smells of fall. Makes you want to run out and rake leaves, one of my favorite things to do. So I am cutting these a little thick only because this one is still a little warm. But this is so moist. Look at this. Oh, it's lovely. and I've got those walnuts in there, and the smell of the gingerbread and the cinnamon. Oh my God, it's just wonderful. So we've got strawberry, which I made before, and you saw me mix the pistachio and the chocolate chip pumpkin muffins and the pumpkin gingerbread. You got bread, you got dessert, you got toast for the next morning. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, because I certainly have. I made a mess of myself, but I had a lot of fun, and I'm going to share my goodies with everybody. And remember, a little kindness goes a long way. Share your goodies that you don't want to eat all by yourself. I'm sure it'll be very muchly appreciated. Bon appetito, and have a nice day.